Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle Nielsen, and this is How You Level Up, a podcast where I ask questions to help you become your best self. Today, through a request from one of our listeners, we ask, what is shame? And how does shame come about? First, let's start with, when was the last time you felt shame? Shame is a psychological mechanism that suppresses the violation of social norms. So when thinking about the last time you felt shame, it would have been because you violated a social norm. Shame has the unique ability to motivate fundamental change in ourself. This means that you would be driven to act or behave in a different way than the way you behaved when you felt the shame. Described as a self-conscious emotion, shame is often compared to guilt or embarrassment, though it's not quite the same. Shame, guilt, and embarrassment are all emotions that you feel in social environments because they result from not meeting a shared expectation of how people need to appear to others. How shame is different from guilt or embarrassment is that shame can lead to maladaptive behaviors, which could further harm you or others. It involves internal and judgmental dialogue about the self, like, I am a bad person. Meanwhile, guilt and embarrassment involve internal judgment and dialogue about a behavior, like, I did something wrong or I behaved badly. Now, because shame uniquely motivates fundamental change in ourself, there are a few ways that shame motivates us to react. You might be driven by shame to repair your threatened self through pro-social behaviors like apologizing, increasing your efforts to reach a specific goal that the shame was involved with, or further ethical decision-making. You might also be driven by shame to protect your threatened self through withdrawal behaviors. These would include reduced engagement, neglect of relationships or responsibilities, and psychological withdrawal, which could result in placing yourself in dangerous situations. And you might be driven by shame to defend your threatened self with aggressive behaviors. The recipients of this aggression includes those who were involved in the shaming. It could be convenient scapegoats, which is a displaced aggression, or behaviors which would include blaming others and displacing shame with anger. And so, shame uniquely motivates fundamental change in ourself to either repair your threatened self, protect your threatened self, or defend your threatened self. In all situations, shame teaches you and those who observe the shame that accepting and abiding by the norms of this society and group are the best thing for you to do. Perhaps the key to shame is an exposure, meaning that you feel shame when exposed to the society or group whom would shame you for certain violations of norms. If you are not exposed then to that group, do you still feel shame? If you do, what is it that you're judging yourself about on behalf of the norm you violated? If you do not feel shame, then what is it about the norm that in private you disagree with and in public you want to uphold? At that point, what value does that norm give you anyway? And what can you do once you feel shame? One well-known writer and fantastic researcher on the topic of emotions, Brené Brown, says you can work with shame in a very specific manner. Brown suggests that to handle feelings of shame, first identify shame is present. You can do this by checking your bodily sensations, like a sickness in the stomach. Check your thoughts for negative talk about you as a person. And check your behaviors like avoiding certain conversations or keeping secrets. Once identified, Brown then says, talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love by saying, it's okay that you've made a mistake. Now you can learn from this. It's okay that this has happened because of X, Y, and Z. And after sharing empathy with yourself, because that's what you're doing when you talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love, reach out to another person who can share empathy with you. So in a sense, if you know you're feeling shame, you are also experiencing a void of empathy. First, a void of empathy from yourself because the internal dialogue is about being a bad person instead of having committed a bad act. And second, a void of empathy from those around you who you perceive as shaming you because if you did perceive they were being empathetic towards you, your emotions would be guilt or embarrassment instead of shame. And we've talked about using nonviolent communication, or NVC, as a framework for effectively communicating with others. So in NVC terms, shame is considered a form of self-hatred. And actions taken in reaction to shame are not free and joyful acts. When we recognize that shame, the emotion, comes from an internal mindset of inadequacy, regret, or unworthiness, it becomes clear why shame is a form of self-hatred. These mindsets and this feeling of shame, they come about because of a norm and because of a judgment about your violation of that norm. You won't always be able to control the judgments coming from other people, though you can control how you judge yourself. You can pull away from judging yourself as a person and focus on the behavior at hand. You can observe in others when they might be experiencing shame and share empathy with them. So, can you recall the last time that you were shamed? What happened? Can you recall the last time you shamed someone else? What was it about? What was the norm that they violated? And how might you inject empathy for yourself or for someone else when you see or experience shame next? Thank you for listening to another episode. If you're enjoying the show, open up the app you're listening to this on and hit the like or subscribe button and give a 5-star rating. At least twice a week, you'll find a new episode asking you a new question, so you can strengthen your emotional independence, improve your communication skills, and upgrade your personal philosophy. So if there's a question you'd like me to dive into next, send it to any of these social media accounts connected in the show notes here. This is all about how you level up.